Good afternoon, Excellencies, Mr. Amer from the Islamic Development Bank, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today for this unique opportunity to rewire global education and do it in person. There is a word in Kiswahili that describes the joy of being back together in person at this scale. The word is furaha, meaning happiness. Thank you to our co-hosts, Her Excellency Reem Al-Hashimi and His Excellency Dr. Tariq Al-Gulg for organizing this event and for organizing it so well. While I come here with the joy in my heart, but I also have a deep concern because our world is in the midst of profound learning crisis. The only way to achieve a better society for our children tomorrow, for our children's tomorrow, is by giving them a high-quality education today. But the global pandemic has forced education to the back burner in many countries. The rising costs of providing health care and repaying loans are squeezing in national budgets. The average lower income country spends more than 8 of every 10 education dollars on recurrent costs like teachers' salaries, leaving little money for innovation or getting more children into school and learning. This affects the most marginalized children, especially the poor, girls, disabled children, and those living in conflict and fragility. It is what keeps us awake at night. It is these situations that keep us awake at night, and it is why we are launching an innovative financing solution today. The Smart Financing for Education initiative will increase funding to transform education systems and educate millions more children. It will finance the most effective and sustainable programs in countries that often lack sufficient resources. This unique partnership brings together key development finance institutions that comprise the Arab Coordination Group with the Islamic Development Bank and the Global Partnership for Education. A year ago, the board of the Global Partnership for Education, which I am now honored to serve as its chair, asked the Secretariat to explore innovative new financing tools to increase impact by mobilizing coordinated financing. We gather here today to launch the largest of those tools. The Smart Financing for Education initiative will integrate $100 million of GP grants with at least $400 million from Arab Coordination Group members coordinated by the Islamic Development Bank. Countries facing the twin burdens of debt and disease will now have access to new education financing. This funding will be faster moving and more concessional than ever before. It will be driven by our own partner countries based on their needs and national ambitions. In the end, the challenge of getting every child into school and learning lies with national governments. We, the global community, can share in their efforts by putting the right tools and financing in their hands. By investing in our children today, we will achieve prosperous, resilient, and equitable societies tomorrow. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your kind attention and welcome to this wonderful conference. Bye.
Excellency, thank you.
Good afternoon and Assalamu alaikum. Your Excellency, President Dr. Jakaya Kikwete, the Global Partnership Board Chair, Excellencies, Honorable Ministers of Education and Finance, Director Generals of Arab Coordination Group institutions, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the President of Islamic Development Bank, His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Suleiman Al Jasser, it is a great honor for me to welcome you all to this launching ceremony of ACG-Smart Financing for Education. I would like firstly to appreciate the space provided by Dubai Cares by including this event in the Rewired Summit agenda. On behalf of the Arab Coordination Group institutions, I want also to thank our partner to this initiative, the Global Partnership for Education. There could not have been a better opportunity or platform to launch this innovative financing initiative than this global forum dedicated to discussing how we rethink and rewire the education ecosystem following recent disruptions for better and greater resilience. The theme of the Islamic Development Bank education sector policy, which has been approved 2 years ago, Learning for Human Development, is based on the conviction that education is fundamental for human development. Education improves the quality of lives and leads to broad social benefits to individuals and society. The financing of education, however, has remained a perennial challenge in developing countries, especially amongst Islamic Development Bank member countries. With limited grant and concessional resources from development partners to complement domestic financing, developing countries are not only reluctant but are unable to absorb commercial financing for education. The situation has undoubtedly been exerted by impact of COVID-19. The pandemic pushed millions of vulnerable children out of education, created a learning crisis, and reversed decades of hard-won gains. This is a crucial junction in history, and our joint commitment to invest more in quality education now will shape the future ahead. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is against this background that the ISDB is poised on optimizing education financing by exploring innovating baskets of flexible financing options to support increased investments in education. The Islamic Development Bank is committed to building strategic partnerships to leverage co-financing, create complementarity, and enhance synergy of interventions through innovative blended financing modalities, including outcome-based financing in collaboration with other partners and, of course, the private sector. The ACG-Smarter facility that we are launching today provides a blend of concessional resources from the Arab Coordination Group to unlock country allocation from the GPE multiplier grants in common member countries. It therefore provides reliability of financing to strengthen public financial management capacity as enshrined in the principles of the Paris Declaration on aid effectiveness for beneficiary countries. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, education is a social endeavor, and the learning environment plays a critical role thereof. In our efforts to rebuild better and more resilient education systems, developing countries must be supported with affordable financing to complement domestic resources. The challenge in the education sector the challenges are enormous, but the stakes of inaction are even much higher. As a global community, our collective efforts to end hunger and provide inclusive and quality basic education for all is a responsibility that we must fulfill, failing which we can be assured of creating inequalities and disparities that can only breed insecurity in societies. Through this ACG-Smarter facility, the Islamic Development Bank Group and its Arab development partners are stepping up to demonstrate our commitment to furthering development through an enhanced engagement in education financing with the global community. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude by saying that Islamic Development Bank reaffirms its commitment to the Sustainable Development Goal 4. We are resolved to increase our financing for the education sector following the devastating impact of COVID-19. This is a crucial junction in history, and our joint commitment to invest more in quality education now will help shape the future ahead. I thank you all, and I must say that I am really proud to be part of this launching ceremony today. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'd like to invite the Ministers of Education who are part of the panel to please join me on the stage here, and the Ministers of Finance who will be joining us to join us on this side, please. Would the Minister like to join us?
I would love to do so. Let me just close my...
Okay. Thank you. All right. And Minister, please join me here. Okay, and you want to take a side there? Okay. All right. Again, good afternoon, everybody. It is a great pleasure to be here. My name is Charles North. I am the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the Global Partnership for Education. So I want to thank the co-chairs and welcome everyone to this launch event with the Arab Coordination Group for the Arab Coordination Group's Smart Financing for Education initiative. For those who don't know GPE well, we are the largest global fund and partnership dedicated to the elimination of poverty, but also to the transformation of education systems in the lowest income countries around the world. We gather here to celebrate 2 years of relationship building and joint efforts between GPE and members of the Arab Coordination Group who've led and coordinated with the Islamic Development Bank. The 2 years culminate in the launch of the ACG Smart Finance for Education approach, which we also call the Smart Ed. We are here at a unique and seemingly also endless time of the pandemic around the world. This has upended our lives It has created great disruption to our education systems, as well as in our health and economic and social crises. With 1.6 billion children out of school at some point in 2020, the international community continues to face an unprecedented education challenge. The situation is even more dire in some member states of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, where 28 million children are out of school. With those children out of school, in addition to them, so many children are also not learning as much as they should, those who are in school. We know that the pandemic will augment the gravity of the situation, threatening the future of prosperity for millions of children and our youth for their future. Meanwhile, we also know the external financing for education is low compared to other sectors. It is with the urgency of current events in mind that GPE joined hands with the ISDB and other members of the Arab Coordination Group to build the Smart Ed program based on GPE's proven innovative financing tool, the GPE Multiplier. Since 2018, GPE has incentivized 35 partner countries to unlock $1.6 billion in new financing. For example, the Kuwait Fund, the Islamic Development Bank, the Education Above All, and Save the Children are joining hands to leverage GPE's multiplier in a joint package that would yield over $60 million to support education in Kandu State in Nigeria. Building on the success of the multiplier, ACG-Smarter provides a new source of co-financing from the ISDB and members of the Arab Coordination Group that our partner countries can use to secure grant allocation from the GPE multiplier. By providing $4 for every $1 drawn from the GPE multiplier, the Smart Education Financing Initiative will help OIC member states tackle the learning crises in their countries. The approach has secured $500 million in funding with potential to scale up further, and with the single objective of getting millions of more girls and boys in school and learning. I would like to encourage you all to see the leaflet that has been prepared on this new initiative, which is in English and Arabic for your convenience. So now we have heard about the approach. I would like to move now to the next part of our program to hear the experience from education ministers who I'll be talking with now, and then I'll be turning later to the finance ministers. So joining me on the stage from the education side, I have His Excellency Abdullahi Haji, who is the Federal Minister of Education, Culture, and Higher Education, as well as His Excellency Imodoza Muhammad Yusuf, just try to get that right, Minister of Education and Science. So the question I have for the two of you, give each of you a chance to answer this. If I may start with you, Minister, what are the top two challenges facing your education system? And what would be needed, you need to unblock those challenges?
Assalamu alaikum. Dear Excellencies and other distinguished guests, I would like to thank GB for being a reliable and trusted partner in Somalia since 2012. During that time in Somalia, we have seen tangible improvement in the education sector as represented increased enrollment of primary school age youth, the development of the first unfilled curriculum, and the implementation of a standardized exam system. In Somalia, only 33% of children have access to primary education. In southern states, where children lack basic education, it appears that only 22% have access to primary education. Over 4 million school-age children are out of school in the country. Less than 21% of teachers are said to be qualified, meaning that more teachers with no prior training are in the class. You can understand the quality of teaching in our schools. Less than 2,000 teachers are on government payroll out of more than the 4,000 teachers across the country. Coming to the impact of emergencies such as COVID-19, drought on education in Somalia, in addition to the protected crisis caused by the decades of the civil war, Somalia experienced a number of other emergencies, including recurrent drought, flood, clan conflict, and outbreaks like COVID-19. As we speak right now, my country is facing one of the worst droughts we have ever seen, whereby more than 80% of the country is affected, with 2.9 people displaced by the drought. Similar situation witnesses like 2017, leaving 6.7 million people affected. As a result, education is also heavily impacted. The situation increasing the number of out-of-school children for the most vulnerability children, including girls, rural communities, children with disabilities, refugees, and IDPs. More than 100 schools have been closed in the worst affected region of the country. It's estimated that 1 million of the 2.9 million people displaced are school-age children. Importance of access and innovative financing opportunity. Our government is committed to increase public spending in education. However, we anticipate that the drought we are facing might affect the national budget by decreasing the revenue as well as shifting funds to deal with the present humanitarian needs. In both cases, funds allocated for education will be affected. As such, we are calling for our friends and international partners to work with us by providing more funding to education so that we can be able to tackle the learning crisis in Somalia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Minister.
Спасибо. Салам алейкум. Прежде всего хочу поблагодарить организатору данного саммита за прекрасную организацию.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of the summit for this invitation.
И, естественно, на этот вопрос довольно сложно ответить, потому что многие страны мира, как и Таджикистан, сталкиваются с многими проблемами, и в том числе проблема ковида.
It's very difficult to answer this question because, like many other countries in the world, Tajikistan is facing many challenges in the education sector.
Но на данный момент, я считаю, самым сложным вызовом для нашей страны это образование, доступ к дошкольному образованию и качество и релевантность образования на всех уровнях.
But if you would like to focus, I think there are two key challenges in the education system of Tajikistan, and that would be access to preschool education and the quality and relevance of education.
Кажется, все наши усилия и инвестиции в дошкольное образование пока недостаточно для радикального улучшения доступа к дошкольному образованию, потому что в 2012 году мы смогли удвоить количество детей, имеющих доступ к таким. Но такие вызовы, как быстрый рост населения страны, я имею в виду демографические, и недостаточные средства, не позволят нам найти эффективное решение данной проблемы.
Unfortunately, our efforts and investment made in preschool education have not been sufficient to drastically improve the access rate. In 2012, we were able to double the rate of access to preschool education. However, challenges such as rapid demographic growth and insufficiency of funding hasn't allowed us to find an effective solution to the problem.
О релевантности образования многие страны и организации сказали уже многие на этом саммите, и мы услышали много интересных вещей, мнений.
Many countries and organizations have spoken of the quality education and its relevancy in the summit, and we've heard interesting conversations.
Следует отметить, что сохранить универсальный доступ к общему среднему не является легкой задачей для Таджикистана. Как уже отмечалось, высокий демографический рост и устаревшая инфраструктура требуют постоянные инвестиции. К тому же география страны, где 93% составляют горы, и подверженность стихийным бедствиям создают дополнительные барьеры для доступа к школам.
I would like to mention that keeping the universal access to education has not been an easy task for the country. As mentioned, rapid demographic growth and old infrastructure demand for major investments. In addition to this, the geography of the country, which is 93% of the country is mountains, and the fact that it's prone to disasters create additional barriers to access schools.
И когда мы обсуждаем вопрос качества образования, мы задаем вопрос, что означает релевантность образования для такой страны, как Таджикистан? Какие навыки и компетенции необходимо дать таджикским учащимся для того, чтобы они добились успеха в жизни и в стране?
But when we think of quality education, we often ask ourselves a question: what does a relevancy of education mean for Tajikistan? What skills and competencies Tajik students need to succeed in life?
И вы также знаете, что любое правительство, особенно развивающие страны, еще важен и вопрос, какие навыки дадут участие, чтобы они могли поднять экономику своей страны. Какой должен быть будущее экономики страны и какие навыки дадут участие для того, чтобы они добились этого будущего для страны.
But it's also important for any ministry and for the Ministry of Tajikistan to think about what skills and competencies students need to raise the economy of the country. What should the economy of the country look like in future, and what skills we need to give students to enable them to achieve that.
И поэтому страна решила сосредоточить внимание на двух аспектах. Мы поставили перед собой цель развивать точные науки и провести цифровую трансформацию системы образования, чтобы позволить такую трансформацию произойти и в других секторах.
Therefore, we are going to focus on two key things, and we have set a goal to promote sciences, STEM, and digitally transform the education system for the digital transformation to happen in other sectors as well.
Мы также будем рассматривать вопросы внедрения альтернативной формы обучения на всех уровнях образования. Опыт дошкольного образования показывает участие успешного данного подхода. Я верю, что эта реформа позволит нам обучать жизнеспособные молодые поколения, которые построят сильную экономику в такой горной стране, как Таджикистан.
We would also be looking at alternative ways of delivering education at all levels. Based on the experience in preschool education, this seems to be a successful area we could pilot, and I strongly believe that this would enable us to educate resilient young people who will also contribute to a strong economy in a landlocked country like Tajikistan.
Ministers, thank you so much. The challenges you face are significant. And now I'm going to turn to the finance ministers and see what they can do to help. So thank you. I'll be joining the other stage. Ministers, you've heard the education side. We'd love to hear from you. So first, by introduction, we have His Excellency Mambury Njie and His Excellency Faiziddin Qahhorzoda. Close enough? Thank you. So we are now going to turn to these questions. And so if I can start with you, Minister, we know governments themselves account for the largest share of spending to get girls and boys into school and learning. Tell us what you've learned and the challenges you've faced negotiating with the education budget amidst all the other priorities that you're facing.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers. I think this is a very important forum when I was told that I'm invited, I said, very good opportunity to share. From the finance ministry's point of view, there is always competing demands. You talk about education, you talk about health, you talk about agriculture, infrastructure, and the list will go on. Historically, what we have been focusing on is quantity. You talk about, oh, I need to enroll 3,000 girls. 1, 2, 3 years, you've seen that it has increased, maybe 4,000%. But going back to revisit, are you talking about quantity or are you talking about quality? So we had to go back, even before the COVID, like the Gambia. I just want to share with you what we have been doing in terms of expenditure on education. For the 5 years from 2016, this is the domestic financing, $28 million, 2016 dollars, $34 million, 2017, 2018, $38 million, 2019, $50 million, 2020, $54 million. Now, when we revisit, what does it translate to? Going back, then we said before the COVID, I must point out the Global Partners for Education responded very well, and these are all grants. We said we will give a priority to education on what conditions? And they come up with very interesting ways of trying to enhance access to education. And we realized that you have to start from the bottom, meaning at the early childhood development. And that's where the education themselves, in terms of being very innovative, when I look at it, I say rewire. Let's say refurbish, renovate, reinvent. But there is nothing new that we are doing. It's only to fine-tune, to make sure we find the right balance. Those girls that we are coming into the education to schools, sometimes they will go to 1 to 3 years and then you see the dropout. Then we introduce the school feeding program, where we have seen that, at least there is some sort of a continuity. We also provided the free education at the early childhood program, and it's been huge. At the tertiary level up, we also give scholarships, just like from the childhood going up to the university. Recently, we've been able to give a huge number of scholarships for the students, just to continue. But from the education, enhancing the access, we said, apart from the universal access to early childhood education, we know we can do it. Why also revisit? What can you do with the national languages? Does it only have to be in that foreign language? We also have the school improvement grant. We also have the inclusive education. These are all initiatives. But as we come in, we said that from the Ministry of Finance, I'm going to give you. But it has to be performance-based. I also want to see what I have been giving you. Are you investing it more on the programs themselves, or are you taking it just for travels and workshops? I remember a very popular decision that I have taken in 2018 when I saw the net domestic borrowing was going into the red. But when you look at the investment in education and health and others, it was flat. Then there was a travel ban. We said for 3 months, no travels from government officials. Workshops were also condemned. Then we realized that we were able to have additional financing to be able to give to the education sector, and it worked. In terms of we said it's not only about the students you're talking of also improvement in quality of teaching and the languages. The teachers also, you have to capacitize them.
That's right.
Once we realize all of those things, in the wake of the COVID, I'm trying to compress this, we realized that in responding to all of these things, are you really accessing these kids that are in the rural areas? Example, a friend of mine told me, he had a laptop. He was in the rural areas. And the kid asked him, oh, can I see the television? In the urban area, the kid asked him, can I have the laptop so that I can play some games? Here, what we have seen, what we have realized, there's a gap, huge gap, from the rural to the urban.
Yeah.
And then, as government, we say digitalization. And it also is a coincidence that COVID also arrived. Okay. Then we realized that the kids cannot stay out of school for this number of hours. Then the online, the digitalization also, we introduce it. But it is only the kids in the urban areas that can go online. Mm-hmm. In the rural areas, we have to have radios for them to be able to listen to what is happening. Then we said, by coincidence, we have to solarize for all of these kids to have access to the internet.
Right.
Because from the rural to the urban, you can even be in the urban areas, but you will go to a certain pockets of schools that doesn't have access to the national grid. So renewable energy is also currently, we are about, I have already gone to Parliament. We have highly concessionary facilities from the European Investment Bank so that we can solarize not only education, 1,100 schools and clinics are now going to be solarized in Gambia.
Fantastic.
This will be an opportunity for everybody, and it becomes an issue of a human rights, that dignity for that child to be able to have access to that, and as they grow up.
Yeah.
But from the finance minister's point of view, we said, you know what, there will always be a bottleneck. But at what stage are you going to revisit your policies, the issues that have been confronting? Yeah, there will always be bottleneck, but being innovative,
yeah,
that's where the challenge was.
Okay.
And for the Gambia, we have realized that you can always move on despite the challenges. We have had a lot of support from the international community. Example, just to give you the amount of funds that we have been able to really, combined, almost 91 million US dollars from 2016 to 2021. But these are external financing.
Right.
What is sustainable is for us to have access. I'm not talking about grants, but highly concessionary facilities where we'll be able to not only the infrastructure, but we can also be able to find the instruments and facilities to be able to have every citizen the access to not only education, but health facilities.
Great. Thank you so much, Minister. Very helpful. Maybe I can turn to Tajikistan and hear, Minister, what your views are on the challenges you faced in the choices you've had to make and how to ensure that education was funded when you have so many other priorities.
Thank you, Charles. Dear Excellencies, I will try to use my English skills. I believe that everyone knows where is Tajikistan. Tajikistan was a part of the Soviet countries. And you know, after the collapse of the Soviet Union and our independence, we faced not only with the problems which was under such, let's say, political situation, and also we faced with civil war in our country. But having our independence, in our independence time, the social sector as education was one of the priority sector for the government of Republic of Tajikistan. And through last maybe 20 years, we spent our expenditures, about half of budget expenditures was spent on social sector, including the education. But I want to say that the last 10 years, the amount of the volume of financing of education was 100 times increased because of the importance of the sphere, also I would say the growth of the population. Tajikistan now has 9 million people, and more than half of our population lives in the rural place. And as was said, my colleague, one of the big problem was when we faced with the pandemic situation, it was the shortage with the, let's say, internet, some technical issues for the rural place to have access for education. But in a very, very short time from the government was implemented some issues which helped our education system to, I would say, to solve the problem, and it was the biggest problem for us. But having such good support from the ILOs, also we implement many investment projects on our country, and now we implement more than 7 investment projects, more than 240 million. It's on the implementation, and also with the support of others, our, let's say, international organization. We started to build many schools, infrastructure for education. But as I say, the shortage of, let's say, the new technology, it's a question which we are working on it. But I said that 132% we increased. It was, if we look on to 20s, it was only 41 million in our money, local currency. But now it's 5.6 billion some money for the education sector. For the next year, we are planning to increase more than 20% of our expenditures for education sector. But because of the importance of the sector, and because of that, as I said, more than half of percentage of our population lives on rural place. I think it is very important even today, and having such good support from Islamic Bank and APO, it will help our countries and the other countries to see how we can change the situation on the education sector, because the importance of the supporting from such a high level financial institution will help our countries to access for education also, and to provide our education system on requirement of the international level. As was mentioned from His Excellency Minister of Education and Science of Republic Tajikistan, the best way is transforming on digitalization, not only on education, but in all of the sectors of economy. And from the government of Tajikistan, from our side, we do our best to support the education, because it's our future, because it's a support for the social and economic development country for the future. Thank you, Shah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, both ministers. And so we've heard now from the education ministers who have identified the challenges, and we've heard from the finance ministers who've told us that it's hard to find the money. Even though you're committed, that we need to find more efficiencies, but also the benefits of this new program that might be able to support you in this. I would like to now thank all our panelists, and I think we're going to thank you. We're going to go directly as you leave. We'll invite the members of the different funds to come up and make a few remarks before we close. So thank you all. So what I'd like to do is invite the Honorable Representative. Actually, before I invite someone, maybe just note that the Honorable Representative of the OPEC Fund for Development is with us virtually. Could not be here today, but is online. So we're glad to know that you're listening and being part of this special event. So now let me turn and welcome the representative from the OPEC Fund for Development. I'm sorry, the Kuwait Fund for Development. Sorry. Please.
Do you hear me? Please?
Let me join them over here.
Shall I start?
Please.
Thank you. Well, it is my pleasure to be here representing the Director General of Kuwait Fund. And half an hour ago, I was given 2 minutes for my statement. And less than a minute ago, they gave me 1 minute and a half. And I will stick to my 2 minutes. Well, Kuwait Fund is one of the oldest development agencies in the world, and the first one in developing countries. When it comes to education, it is our priority. And since 2003, we started financing educational projects. And since then, we finance about 32 projects in 21 countries, and out of those, 11 countries under the partnership or the beneficiaries of GPE. And our finance total for education only reached about $800 million so far. And the last one was a few weeks ago with partnership of Islamic Development Bank and GPE to finance a project, education project in Nigeria. Our contribution is $25 million. And this is not the first one in but it is the first one as partner with GPE. And for sure, it's not going to be the last one. And we urge, as Kuwait Fund, the Honorable Ministers of Education and Minister of Finance to contact Kuwait Fund for future educational projects to be financed as very, very, very concessional loans, which are better than the grants. And we are there as Kuwait Fund, and we are always helping our friends wherever they are in terms of governments and institutes. And also Kuwait Fund, for the next 5 years, we are allocating about $100 million for education only sector, and seize this opportunity to cooperate with Kuwait Fund as a request from the honorable ministers, or especially the ministers of finance, because these are the key issues, the key for development. But sometimes there is a friction with the Ministry of Finance, with all my respect to them, because they are the hardest one to convince. And this is the task for GPE, go directly to the Minister of Finance, not education, because your key is the Minister of Finance, according to our experience. And I have many things to say, but I think the time is ticking. And my friend giving me, he's waving, he said stop. And my best wishes to everyone, and thank you.
Thank you so much. And GPE does look forward to continuing our partnership. So thank you for that. Let me turn now to the Honorable Representative of the Saudi Fund for Development.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure today, as a part of this important initiatives, due to the statement of the SFD written in Arabic, I'm sorry to tell you to use the translator devices. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحضور الكرام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يسر الصندوق
The Saudi Fund for Development is pleased to represent the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We are strongly believe that education is a very sublime message which help the development in the countries. And also we are participating with the global partnership for education to launch financing for education despite the challenges and to reach a more brilliant future. And this is in line with the main issues that are adopted in this summit. It's about youth, it's about future and financing education and innovation in education. For such initiative or so keen to emphasize that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is highlighting the importance of education through the Saudi Fund for Development and to support the global effort to have access to quality education and to enhance the education services to the marginalized children. Ladies and gentlemen, the Saudi Fund for Development is an effective tool to support the underdeveloped countries. The fund, since its foundation, it was able to fund about 960 projects in different sectors, among which you have about 77 education projects at the value of 60,000 million real. So it's about 1 billion American dollar, and this amount was distributed in countries in Asia and Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, our development goals is aiming at having a common vision to have a brilliant future and a better future. In conclusion, we'd like to highlight that good education, the quality education, is a very good message that would help build the humanity and also to get the society to get rid of poverty. Education is a key for sustainable development, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Let me invite now the Honorable Representative of the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development to give a few words.
It's always to be here. It's always nice to be here, even for a minute. Your Excellencies, present, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to be with you today and would like to congratulate the ACG and GBE for the launch of Smart Education Approach. We believe that if we are to make change and transform our world to become more sustainable and equitable, we all must strive to make education accessible for everyone. That's exactly why the UAE has supported and contributed to the Global Partnership for Education, and why we are at Abu Dhabi Fund for Development will continue to support socio-economic projects, including in the education sector. More importantly, we all know that designing an effective and smart approach to scale up financing for education is as important, and it traditionally creates challenges to both donors and beneficiaries. That's why we at Abu Dhabi Fund for Development found the cooperation model and the value proposition of the ACG-Smarter initiative innovative and inclusive in terms of its ability to bring different donors under one program. Additionally, it caters the option of providing financing on project-by-project basis. This approach to education sector financing fits our future direction, and it aids our approach in building inclusive partnership for better development outcomes. We look forward for years of cooperation with all of you within this initiative and beyond. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you very much. Let me just, we've run over time, but this is obviously a very special event, the launching of this collaboration and the resources that it will make available to the countries in the region to transform their education systems and ensure that all children get the quality education that they need and deserve. So with that, let me give a big thanks to the Arab Fund representatives for their unwavering support to education. And with that, we'll close this session. Thank you all very much.